911. What's your emergency? This is
911 emergency. What are you reporting?
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to We Speak Dispatch. I'm your host today. It's Doug, and I'm here today with Joe, John, and Leslie, and they're going to be answering some questions. We got some good ones today just to kind of throw it out there. So let's get you all the big screen. There you all are. Look at that.
Here we are.
How pleasant.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, everybody. Hopefully everybody had a good night. You're ready to answer some questions that I have not briefed you on. So these are
I'm a little bit scared, but okay.
Probably should be. So, all right.
They're coming from Doug, you never
Here
know.
they
I know.
Let me ask you this. Here's the first question, and I'm going to throw it to Joe first. Joe, who influenced your career more than anybody in public safety? Who was it?
No doubt about it. It was my old dispatch partner. He was a former cop in the 70s, and we called him Hardcore Ron. And I worked with him 9 out of 10 days, and he turned to me one night when I was dispatching, and I was giving some attitude back over the radio, and he said, when it slows down, I'm going to talk to you later.
Oh.
And he basically came to me, and I think it's going to be the first swear word on our episode, Doug, but he said, the officers don't give a shit what they sound like when they key up and talk to you and their life is on the line. They just want to hear a calm, cool, collected voice back.
That's true. Wow.
And he said, you would be a much better dispatcher if you would just stay contained and not care so much about what they sound like. And at first I wasn't sure I necessarily always agreed with it, because I think it's a two-way street a little bit when they don't have to be a jerk, or they're in their car and they're just responding to a call.
Okay.
Yeah.
They just choose to be.
Right. But Ron made me a better dispatcher because he just told me, we're in the room. They want to hear a calm, cool, confident voice back with reassurance and professionalism. And he says it actually will reduce your stress level if you just remember that. And I became a better dispatcher because of it. And actually the job became less stressful and more fun at that point.
Awesome.
And he completely changed my career.
Wow. Who was it?
That's awesome.
Hardcore Ron? Is that what it was?
Hardcore Ron, yeah.
Hardcore Ron. All right, John,
He's
can you
still
beat
wearing
that
the headset.
story? Can you beat
No,
that?
Yeah.
he retired from dispatch, I want to say 4 years ago, maybe.
Oh, really?
But he was a cop in the 70s and then came back to being a dispatcher. And him and I worked when I was dispatching 9 out of 10 days every 2 weeks together.
And he was a cop in the
That's awesome.
70s. That had to be a big mustache.
Wow.
Don't let the mustache cover the microphone.
That's right.
All right, John, beat that story. Well, who was your most influential person?
I started in field experience volunteering with a fire rescue department, and the communication center happened to be first due to one of the stations I was at. And we would go visit the communication center, and somehow I just found a niche there. And I just liked all the gizmos and gadgets in the early 90s where CAD was still a black screen with some green lettering on it.
Woo!
So
I
it took
remember
some
that.
agencies quite a bit to catch up to the true
Yeah.
number.
Oh.
But upstairs was fire rescue and downstairs was police. And somehow I said, I've sat along a lot with fire rescue, just visiting, and I wanted to go check out police. So, they just called downstairs and said, hey, can this guy stop in? And I happened to just they just sat me with an individual downstairs, and we just, to me, really hit it off. And he was operating the police radio at the time. And ever since then, almost once a month or so on weekends, I was still in high school, I would just call him up on a non-emergency number and just say, hey, can I come in and just sit and just monitor and just shadow? It was just so cool just to see what he did. So
How neat is that? Wow. That's
yeah,
cool.
I just took the initiative and just did it. And I never got on the radio or anything. I can't remember
Right.
if he handled anything like major that we consider major nowadays. But just sitting there and just watching him just do it all.
That's
So,
cool. Well, isn't it nice to get questions you're not ready for? Isn't that good? 'Cause look at the good
That's
answers you're
great.
coming up
It's
with.
wonderful.
You both
Super.
had some great answers. How about you, Leslie? You got one?
I do.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I came out to California right out of high school and found a job at a local, for some of you watching this, remember there used to be this thing that we would put in cameras called film. And you'd have to take it to a place to be developed.
Woo.
And I worked at
60s.
Fox.
All right.
Yeah, way long ago. And there was a girl, she was in high school, who would come in from one of the local high schools. She belonged to the student body. Well, she was a cadet at the police department throughout her high school career, and she was going to be a police officer. So she and I kind of hit it off. And she was talking to me about being a police officer, and I'm like, oh, okay. So I went to the Reserve Academy and did that because I couldn't go full time in the police academy because you had, I still had bills to pay and all that. So I went through the Reserve Academy, got hired as a reserve with Chino Police Department. So I started my work in the field as well. And then our agency decided that they were going to have their own dispatch center. And so they said, hey, you know the streets, you know the city, you know radio codes. Could you just work in there for a little bit while we train other people? And then you can go back to being in the field. Well, like all of you, I found that niche, that place. It's like, oh yeah, as a field unit, you get maybe 3-4 calls a shift.
Yeah.
But in dispatch, you're either taking the call, you're running the people on the call, you're dispatching the call, you're helping to get, and I was hooked. So
that's all it took right there.
That's all it took.
That's why I love these kind of questions like this, because you get the real answer right there. Now,
right.
I honestly knew the questions all day, so I had time to prepare, but I always say the same person because she had such an influence on me, and that was my trainer, Sandy.
Yeah.
Sandy, every time I run into her, she's on my Facebook, I tell her, thanks for what you've done. You've turned me into
right.
thing. And it's like, she really was so patient and so caring and made training so fun that I just loved going to work every day. And when we finished training and I was like ready to go, I felt so like, I don't want to be separated. I want to be like,
right.
still with you.
Right.
It's so fun. So she was one of my biggest influences out there. So that's kind
well,
of
and Doug,
from the NCIC manual.
yeah.
And my takeaway from that is, sometimes I'm sure at all of our centers,
Yeah.
we have people come in and do sit-alongs or applicants or whatever. And, sometimes our peers or our people who are working are like, oh my God. But each one of us, it was just that relationship, John, that you're talking about, or Joe, the person you had already been hired, but he was mentoring you, just to remember that it's a one interaction
Yeah.
that could change the trajectory of somebody's entire personal and professional career. I think that's amazing.
That's
We
why
have to
when I'm teaching classes, I'm always telling people, when's the last time you said thanks to the person that hired you or
Right.
the person that trained you? We take it for granted and we think, whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
Jen hired me, Sandy trained me. I mean, these are people that impacted my life. And I think we all should probably, make sure we tell that person that hired you into this darn business, thanks for what you did.
Yes.
Kind of a
Awesome point.
Excellent.
All right. So you ready for our next question?
Yes.
Okay.
He says,
Tell
Very-
me, what was your best day in dispatch? What was your best day? And let's start with Leslie. Go ahead, Leslie. I'm sure you got something. Wow. See, good
All
question.
right, I got it.
that's,
Makes you think.
that you got one,
Yeah, I
John?
got one.
Oh,
Okay,
no,
go.
ahead, John. What you got?
Okay, so working one of the midnight shifts. I was at a dispatch console, but it was really supporting police dispatchers. It wasn't a call taking, and it wasn't on the radio. But 911 was over ringing, and I happened to pick up the call. And a frantic woman was on the phone because her child was choking, and it was like 3-5 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
So the call comes in, I take it, I do my thing, responders get out, you hang up the phone, it's like, okay, ready for the next one. Kind of thing. You
Right.
really don't think anything of it, at least I did at the time. So I learned, I don't even remember if the child got transported or whatnot. Anyway, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 months later, my boss comes to me and says, someone wants to meet you. And I said, okay, do I know this person? And she said, probably not. But do you remember taking a call at a certain point at that position, and it was a choking? And I said, very vaguely, but probably more than other calls, just because I didn't take many calls at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
So I get it, and it just so happens the mom brought the child in and baked
Wow.
cookies for everybody on the shift. And I met
Wow.
the mom and the child, and apparently this must have been coordinated for a couple weeks because she
Sure.
knew how many people would be at work at the time. So it was just, when you talk about one person can change the trajectory of a career,
Wow.
you just never know what one caller you're going to touch.
Okay, now that's a good one. Wow.
That's awesome.
That's
That is super cool.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Either one of you try to beat that?
No. Next question, please. Next question.
No, we're going to do this question. Joe?
Leslie, I like to talk about the training day with Louisiana State Trooper Bobby Smith.
Oh, yeah.
I do like to share that. He has recently passed, or a few years ago passed, but he came to our state in Iowa and did a training for us at the APCO and NINA conference. And it was a phenomenal day of training, and he's had a difficult life for sure, where he was shot in the line of duty and lost his sight. And he goes on to tell this story where, you know, he lost his sight and everything else, and then he went through some family troubles as well with divorce. And then he ends up losing a daughter, and then later on ends up losing a son. And he was still going around the nation and inspiring 911 dispatchers to not let your closet completely fill up. Make sure when you're feeling stress and everything else that you're reaching out to people when in need. And if he had the courage to do what he was doing and overcoming those obstacles, it was something that truly motivated me, and I'll never forget it. And the best thing was I got to spend the whole day with him and lead him around. I was on the training committee at the time, and it was one of the best days I've ever had in my 911 career. And it was in person and nothing over the phone or the radio.
How cool
Yeah,
is that? Wow,
that is
Leslie,
Very cool.
really putting the heat on you. 'Cause these two stories were great.
You know, I mean, there's always, and I think everybody in this business has gone to a party or gone to some event and somebody says, oh, tell me your most exciting call. And you know, it sounds, and I don't mean it to sound flippant, but it's like John said, you know, you take a call and you move on, and you take a call and you move on. You know, I think the most, did you say the best day or the most impactful?
Best day. Because I don't want to talk about the worst day. We could all go on
Sure.
to that, and I don't want to deal with that. So,
Right.
what's the best?
You know, and this is going to sound corny, and I'm going there, but today was the best day, and tomorrow's going to be the best day, and the day after that's going to be the best day, because, you know, it isn't necessarily about the big call or something like that. It's, hey, I get to go to work every day, and I've got a strong group of people who are fired up about the job, and the agency that I work for is fired up about what we do, and it's, every day's a new day to make a difference, and I think that's pretty cool. I like that.
And I like that. That's kind of, it's kind of like Gordon Graham when he says, hey, he won the lottery like 57 years ago when he was
Right.
in this country. And I'm like,
Exactly.
that's exactly what we all have out there. I mean, I will tell you just, I mean, I only wish I would have had the story like John gave us, because I've never really met anybody that I've helped on 901. And it's important that we think about those things. My go back to when 9/11 happened, and I was off. They called me in the morning and said, you need to come in immediately. I raced to work. We was watching what was going on, and it was horrible. But just to see this crew pull together and just be so good during this thing, and not crazy and not yelling and going nuts.
Right.
They just pulled together and was like, it was the kind of a really great time on the floor to see these folks going, man, we know what's happened, and
Right.
we know it's terrible, but we're still
Right.
here to help out people.
Right.
So
Yeah.
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 that was a great experience out there. So that was
Yeah, I think I love that too. When, and especially, and we've all worked in centers where you know that people, they may not necessarily like each other, and that's fine. My expectation is not that you're going to go out and be best friends, but when it hits the fan,
Yeah.
it is a finely oiled machine, and it
Yeah.
just is. And that's when, after the dust settles and everything, you go, man, that was awesome. That was cool.
Yeah.
when you're driving home, you're
The next
thinking,
one.
man, they
Yeah, and then on to the next.
yeah.
Or you're waiting for that next one.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, guys, I will tell you that was two pretty good questions that I think brought out some good stuff. And I hope the people
Yeah.
that are watching are going to be talking to each other saying, what was our best day? What was it? What did we
Yeah.
have with things? I mean, I like to spark that conversation with everybody that's out there. So it's kind of nice to see that. So I will tell you that if you got any comments or questions, or you want to talk to one of us, or, hey, you might even want to try to be on Zoom with us one time, who knows? Send us an email, the right below us here. Put a comment on there, do something, share our page with everybody you can think of out there to get the message out that we speak dispatch, and that means we're talking right to y'all out there.
Yeah.
So I definitely appreciate
Yes.
everybody's time, patience, and efforts out there. Thanks all the three of you, and I guess we'll see you next time, everybody. Good night.
All right.